And it comes, again, chatting on recovery today. So when it comes to recovery, this is something that often is overlooked, something that many first responders do not put enough attention to. And I would put it towards any performance-based individual. So whether they're an athlete or a first responder, in lots of cases, both, not recovering has lots of negative side effects. Or not putting, we'll say, adequate attention to recovery. And so taking the training today, we're going to focus on a few things in recovery. We're also going to touch on supplements. I know I didn't touch on that in nutrition, and there's a reason why. And so we're going to touch on those things today. If you have any questions, feel free, again, just use the chat box and I will answer any questions that you type away as we go. So without dragging on too long, let's get to it. So when it comes to recovery, there are some important, we'll say, aspects that we want to make sure we cover. I'm going to go through, again, same thing as we've done in the past when it comes to our training. So training objectives today, we're going to go over why recovery is important to basically achieving better results and unlocking your potential. We're going to go over the best types of recovery to focus on. In fact, 4 things to focus on, 4 practical pieces that are going to promote better recovery and ultimately get you better results. I'm also going to get you linked up with a 14-day trial of Virtual Mobility Coach, which we'll talk about in a little bit more detail as time goes on. So who this is for, who this isn't for: if you are a first responder and a woman looking to either work in a career or already working in a career, as with fire, police, EMS, what have you, you have some experience and really just looking at kind of getting to that next level. This will help you, or can be definitely one of the low-hanging fruits to taking you to that next level. Just like always, got to throw the disclaimer in there. I am, again, a coach, a personal trainer, so this definitely has there's lots of attributes to this, but this training is not meant to replace any sort of professional advice who knows more of the nuance of your one-on-one situation. Now, again, if I work on one-on-one individually, I can take on a little bit more liability, but if you're using this, information for your benefit, again, make sure it's not replacing sound advice from professionals that you know and trust you. So, with this training, we're going to go over why I built it. So truthfully, when it comes to recovery, it's undervalued in training. Lots of people will think, okay, I want to get fit, I want to perform better, I'm going to train hard, I'm going to eat right. While that's well intended, the intentions behind it are good. The big thing with training is that it's missing a couple pieces. We touched on the mental or the mindset piece yesterday, and today recovery is one of the low-hanging fruit that many don't really realize, but actually has a significant impact on the results you get and on the things that you're going to, on how you're going to make progress. And so the reason why I built this training is it's undervalued, so I think it needed to be highlighted in of itself. It can be the key. In many cases, it is the key to unlocking, to getting to that next level, which is why I put it in, when people I work with, it's one of the things that I bring up and talk about. Again, like all the trainings I want to do, I want to provide some actionable advice that you can do right after this call to start to, compound it over time with consistency. Start to see better results in your training, in your nutrition, in your life, performance as a first responder, and all the, we'll say, athletic endeavors you pursue outside of your career. I also built this because first responders, shift work in large in part, has some unique hurdles that most people don't understand and most people don't even consider when it comes to training. And so again, the predominantly most of my clients are first responders. So I wanted to highlight this as there are unique struggles when it comes to recovery that first responders deal with that many don't or don't understand. There are lots of coaches out there that just don't quite understand the give and take when it comes to certain things when it comes to recovery and working as a first responder. So with this training today, if you see it at the end, you're going to go through what is recovery and the biggest ticket items to focus on. So the biggest, easiest, simplest things that you can focus on and some practical strategies to deal with that. We're going to go over 4 simple rules or 4 simple things that you need to focus on with actionable advice on each of them to promote better recovery and get better results. And again, like I said, I'll give you a link for a 14-day free trial of Virtual Mobility Coach. Again, that's not from me. That's from a different organization, the Ready State. I'll go over that in detail in a little bit, but it's something that I dug up and found, and I wanted to provide to you, just as a added, hey, this is available to you if you'd like it. So why focus on recovery? Well, there's lots of reasons why. So poor recovery limits progress in the gym. If I look at the equation to health and performance or health and fitness, whether you're, somebody's goals is more aesthetic, they want to look a little more tone, a little more lean, or they want to perform better. And in most cases, the first responders I work with want both of those things. When you're under recovered, you can train yourself into the ground. You can actually, there is a point you can overtrain and actually work backwards and see negative progress, negative results. And so, not focusing on recovery really limits the progress and the work you're putting in. Okay. Not why focus on recovery. If you're under recovered, that has been shown to have increase in stress levels. We'll get into a little bit more detail as we go on, but for human beings who work in a already stressful environment, fire, police, military, paramedic, as you are already dealing with stresses in your job, adding to that by being under recovered is a recipe for disaster. Another reason why you want to focus on recovery is when you're under recovered, there's decreased alertness. So you're actually less effective. You're less effective in the gym. You're less effective on the job. And that, again, if you remember from our training yesterday with the mindset, that decreased alertness can increase reaction times, and increased reaction times can lead to preventable situations. So again, recovery is very, very, very important piece of this. It also increases chance of injury. If you have increased stress and decreased alertness, your chance of injury is going to go up just naturally. Whether that's on the job or in the gym, lots of injuries that I've seen on the job or in the gym for first responders almost always is due to, not always, but almost always is due to, in part, they're under recovered to some degree. And so that's something we want to focus on, something we want to draw some attention to. Another thing on reason why as to you want to focus on recovery is when you don't have you not have a good recovery protocol, we'll say, that negatively affects body composition. Now, I think it's safe to say most people work out to look and feel better. And so, look, feel, and perform better, we'll say, is usually what I work on with the clients that I work with. But if that's your goals and you're under recovered, you're going to see that's where you get to that point where you're working out really hard, you're eating right, but you're not seeing the results that you want to see. You're not seeing that tone or lean look that you're maybe wanting to see. And so being under recovered negatively affects your body composition and your ability to achieve the body composition that you're maybe trying or working towards getting. It can also impact your mood and social skills. Again, recovery has many different faces to it, which we're going to cover today, but being under recovered negatively impacts your mood and makes you a little more irritable. It takes away from your ability to be social, which can have negative impacts on your relationships. And so focusing on good recovery is a big piece to getting the most out of training, the most out of your job, the most out of life. I'm just going to shut the door because my dog is barking. Sorry about that. It also results in decreased mental and physical resiliency. So you're more likely to break down faster being under recovered. And so both mentally and physically. And so we want to make sure that, again, drawing attention to recovery, that we can limit that decrease in ability. It's also going to, when you're under recovered, increase chances of substance abuse. Okay. This is I don't think it's highlighted. It's very uncomfortable for lots of people to talk about. But again, focusing on recovery, proper recovery channels, protocols, we'll say, decreases the likelihood of substance abuse. This is very, again, when it comes to work as a first responder, this is very common, probably more common than many realize. And so focusing on recovery can reduce that for yourself, which can make you less reliant on those substances, basically. So I left this in the training. Okay. Remember the 4 C's. This is like, if you get nothing from these 5 days of training, like this is what you absolutely need to do at all times. So recovery, okay, we need to be with those 4 C's. We need to have the clarity on what is recovery. Okay, where am I lacking? Where do I need to focus on my recovery? You need to have the courage to actually take the step. A lot of what I'm going to give you, or some of what I'm going to give you, might seem like it goes against the grain, or it might seem difficult. I'm not saying hopefully you haven't gotten the impression that anything is easy, but rather it can be simple, but difficult. And having the courage to do that anyway is really important. Having the courage to make certain decisions that may socially go against the norm or the status quo, but in the ultimate goal to making you better for your job, for your fitness, to achieve the goals you want to achieve in fitness and in career and whatever. It takes courage, it takes consistency, it takes communication with those around you. All right. So the big 4 of recovery, we're going to cover these one by one, and I'm going to go through each in detail. If you've even Googled the word recovery, I'm sure you're going to come up with the first word, which is sleep. Okay. When it comes to recovery, sleep is, I would say, the lowest hanging fruit. And I'm probably going to show you some information that you're aware of, and hopefully show you some information you're maybe not aware of when it comes to sleep. Okay. But this is going to build with everything. So without sleep, so if you go a period of time without sleep, this actually has similar effects to drinking. Okay, so if you go 18 hours without sleep, it can have, not always, again, these numbers are averages. They're based off of studies, which, I can revert you to those studies, but ultimately without sleep, 18 hours of no sleep can equal about, 0.05% blood alcohol levels. If you go a full 24 hours, it could be 0.1% blood alcohol level. So it can, if you're sleep deprived, it can have similar effects to the body as being hammered or drunk. And so, that you would never show up to the job. You would never, maybe you do, but you probably wouldn't go slam out a workout, a very tough workout at that, being hammered, right? So sleep is really important, and something that's definitely difficult for first responders to achieve, especially when it comes to shift work and the type of career position you're working in. Having low sleep also hurts hormone levels, which affects your muscle building. So we touched on hormone levels and whatnot in the nutrition training, but when it comes to hormone levels, having sleep or lack of sleep can also have similar effects to your hormone levels as your when it comes to your nutrition. And so making sure that your sleep is on par or in line with proper protocols in place, which we'll go through in a bit here, can ensure that your hormone levels stay regulated, which is going to ensure that you make the progress you want to make in the gym, as well as day-to-day in your career. Okay, another thing about sleep is when you have low sleep, there are higher levels of cortisol level, or what is known as the stress hormone. And this kicks in your sympathetic nervous system. Okay, so your, we'll say fight or flight. And so having those higher levels of cortisol, or that stress hormone, makes it very difficult. Again, it's affecting those hormone levels, can make it difficult to, again, see the progress you want to see, whether it's if you're looking for a fat loss, if you're looking for muscle gain, if you're, in most cases, it's a bit of both. Then, you're going to want to make sure that your hormone levels are regulated, and cortisol is one of those hormones. So you want to make sure that we keep those in check. Again, not that you can ever turn it off. Cortisol can be good, but too much cortisol, too often, too consistently can negatively affect the work you're putting into the gym and nutrition and everything else. So the way I say it is, you can work your ass off in the gym. You can work your ass off at work. You can dial in your nutrition perfectly. But if you're sleeping 4 hours a night, you're probably going to hit a point where you just aren't making the progress you want to make. Okay, and it'll be very frustrating to bash your head against it. And so sleep is a very important piece. It also kills libido. So if that's important in relationships to you, know that lack of sleep can kill your libido. Lack of sleep also can affect your perception on all events. So again, it can negatively affect your mental state. So how you look at something, how you approach something. So we touched on yesterday with it when it came to the mindset training. If you're underslept, that can negatively affect your mindset, which can make it much more difficult to look at things, look at obstacles from a productive or from a stance that's going to help you versus, if you're low on sleep, you're probably going to look at that obstacle as a roadblock, which is going to ultimately stop you from getting to where you want to go. So when it comes to sleep, it can negatively affect your perception on all events in life, training, job, what have you. Okay. So how do you improve sleep? Now, this is probably one of the biggest slides. I would definitely suggest you write down these aspects. As a first responder, these are tried and true methods that I give my clients all the time. But again, they might seem simple in nature, but sometimes a little bit more difficult to execute. And so, I'll work with clients on these things to help improve their sleep, which is going to help improve the progress or results they're looking at getting. As a first responder, you absolutely should be purchasing blackout blinds. Okay. If you don't, get them, simply because with shift work, there's a lot with when it comes to circadian rhythms and sleep hygiene, and natural lighting can have a huge impact on those circadian rhythms. And so having those blackout blinds really helps your internal body clock, those circadian rhythms, actually function at a normal, as normal as they can, we'll say, when it comes to shift work, when you're mimicking the light that would normally be outside. Okay, so having blackout blinds for first responders, I say, is a must. You absolutely need to have those. The next thing that's good to have is a sunrise alarm clock. Okay, again, mimicking that light. I think you can get these on Amazon for like $20, but a sunrise alarm clock will basically, as it's waking up, the light will get brighter and brighter. And it's meant to mimic that of the sun. And so if you're, let's say, working night shifts, you're starting work at 7 p.m. and it's dark, you want to make sure that it's dark when you're sleeping and it's light when you're waking up. And so that sunrise alarm clock can actually help your circadian rhythms in kind of cueing your body and cueing your nervous system to, okay, it's time to wake up. And doing so in a less abrupt way than the super annoying alarm on your phone. Okay, so sunrise alarm clock is I highly recommend that to first responders, again, just so that we can mimic the sun and the night and day aspect, even though you might be working overnight. The next is limit blue light and put phone away from bed. So what I mean by this is basically, and I'm pretty sure I have a point beyond this, but I think it's pretty common practice to have your phone in bed. I'm guilty of it. Most people are guilty of it. Have your phone in bed, Google, Instagram, Facebook, you go down the wormhole, whatever. But limiting that blue light, option one is there's actually settings on iPhones now, and I think on Samsungs and Androids too. But there's settings that you can, at a certain time, it's going to switch from blue light to warm light, which is going to, again, help with your circadian rhythms and your internal clock when it comes to sleep. But that's kind of step one. Step two is I would recommend put your phone either in another room or on the dresser, where if you are using your phone for an alarm clock, or if you do get the impulse to, grab it in the middle of the night, it's too far. It's too, putting it in an inconvenient place to grab it easily, can actually be beneficial. Now, I'm not saying you have to throw it down a well. Basically just put it somewhere that maybe you're on call, maybe your kids are out of the house or whatever, and you want to have that phone available. Great. You can still have it in the room. Just make it inconvenient to grab it in the middle of the night when perhaps you're having trouble sleeping or something like that. Because then if you're having trouble sleeping and you pick up that phone, that blue light's going to kick in. I'm forgetting off the top of my head, but it's going to kick in dopamine levels. I believe that's it. And it's going to make it more difficult for you to fall back asleep, especially if you go down the wormhole of Instagram. Okay, so limiting that blue light and putting the phone away from your bed can be, it's simple, but again, execution is important. It can be hugely beneficial to improve your sleep hygiene and your sleep protocols. So like I said, the next point, if you can, don't even do a screen before bed. grab a book, read a book, meditate. One thing that I've, some days I'm better at others, but one aspect that I like to do is I actually will throw on some, when I'm going to give you the ready state, I'll throw on some stretching protocols or yoga or something like that. And I'll just do that in the living room and then go brush my teeth, head to bed. Boom, done. But if you can stay off screens 1 hour before bed, it's going to start to keep your signal to your body and your brain that it's time, we're winding down, we're shutting down for the night. Okay. Consistency and schedule. Now, this one is really tough for first responders. What I mean by consistency and schedule is, yes, as much as possible, if you can be consistent, meaning you're going to bed and waking up at the same time every day, doesn't matter if it's weekend, weekday, whatever, that's going to be best. Now, shift work obviously throws a huge wrench into that. And so that where I always say is when it comes to consistency and schedule, try and be as consistent as possible. Meaning if you're a firefighter and you work, let's say a 4 on 4 off, where you have 2 days shifts, 2 night shifts, yeah, those 2 night shifts are probably going to fuck your sleep patterns up. But if you're working 2 day shifts and all the others, 4 days off or whatever, that should be as consistent as possible when it comes to sleep. Okay. An inconsistent sleep schedule can really mess you up. Now, again, you only have so much control over that as a first responder. And so that's where I'll work with the clients I work with to schedule in their sleep. Okay, when are you sleeping? This might require that you have to say no to certain social events or friends or family or whatever in place of sleep. But I'm telling you right now, if you're underslept, there's potential of being caught in a bad situation that you can't undo, it goes up dramatically. And so sleep being as important as it is, if you're not able to be as consistent as possible, aiming to schedule it in and make it a priority. So one example I give is, this woman I was working with, she was really struggling with sleep. Her shift schedule in her department was everywhere. It was all over the place. So she had no control over that. And so literally she had to schedule her sleep in, put it in as a calendar event in her phone, like she's sleeping from this time to this time. And she was not allowed to book any appointments or any errands or time with friends. She wasn't allowed to book during that sleep time. And, that's sometimes the reality of what you had to do. Thankfully, we only had to do that together for 2 months while she was dealing with, protests and this and that. But it does require priority, especially for first responders, because with shift work, you're not going to get the same luxuries of, roughly same times you're going to wake up and go to bed. Doing adding some white noise before sleep. So there's actually a couple apps on the phone. So again, I know I said put it somewhere else in the room, but if you put it on your dresser and you have this stuff playing, you can still listen to it while you're sleeping, and it's still in an inconvenient place for you to go use it. But apps like Calm or Headspace can be good white noise or background noise to help take your brain off. Okay, one thing that I've done is I'll put on a show on Netflix that I'm very familiar with, be it whatever, Friends or a show like that. And I'll place it face down on the dresser so I can listen to it, I can hear it, but I'm not invested into it. I've seen that episode before, but it helps my brain. It helps signal my brain that it's time to go to bed. And usually I'm in bed or I'm asleep within minutes. Other apps like Calm or Headspace, or even just like opening your window and listening to the outside or whatever, all of these things, this white noise can help your brain signal that it's time to go to sleep. Okay. Another thing that can help is lists and journaling. Okay. So we touched on this yesterday with the mindset training, but lists and journaling at the end of the day can actually let's say before you go to bed, can actually shift some stuff out of your brain and put it on paper so that you're not thinking of it when you're trying to fall asleep. Okay. It's out of your brain. It's on paper. It's there. You can deal with it in the morning. Okay. This again, it's not a be all end all, but it can be helpful to improving your sleep. Okay. And the last piece I'm going to say, or one of the last pieces, is nutrition. Again, going back to the nutrition training, quality, quantity, and consistency is important. That can actually, if your nutrition's poor, it can negatively affect your sleep. It can make it harder to sleep. Okay. So making sure your nutrition's on point can be beneficial in making your sleep better. And if your sleep better and your nutrition's better, chances are the training you're putting in is going to be more effective. Okay. So the next point I'm going to make of the big four is hydration. This is something that many people, again, it seems easy and simple, but I don't think, I would venture to say most people do not hydrate enough. Okay. But there are some big reasons as to why for first responders, you want to focus or be aware or draw attention to hydration. So, okay. So when you are dehydrated or have not enough hydration, you're going to see increased strain on joints. Your knees, your shoulders, your hips, those things are going to ache more. They're going to hurt more. There's less lubrication within your body. Things are drying out. They're tougher, and it's not going to feel good. Okay. You're going to feel a little bit more exhausted. Okay. If you're dehydrated, exhaustion levels are going to go up. Okay. And if you're exhausted trying to work out, chances are that workout's going to be subpar. If you're exhausted and you're at work or at shift work, chances are you're going to be less effective on the job. And if you're less effective on the job, heaven forbid you're caught in a shitty position. Okay. Another reason why you want to be hydrated is irritability. A lot of people don't think of this. If you're dehydrated, you're going to be more irritable. Okay. You're going to snap at coworkers, snap at teammates, snap at loved ones, which is, again, negatively going to impact your relationships. Okay. So it's going to increase your irritability when you're dehydrated. This is probably one of the big points. Okay. These next two. So I put firefighters in there. Heat regulation. Obviously, firefighters, depending on the call, might have heat regulation is important. Okay. You don't want to overheat. And if you're dehydrated, your body's internal ability to regulate heat is out the window. Okay. Yeah. Making sure that you're hydrated is going to ensure that you regulate that heat and your internal body temperature so that your body works as it should, as it's meant to. And if you're dehydrated, it's going to have a really tough time keeping that heat regulated to safe levels, which leads to that next point that I was going to make is if your body's having trouble or struggling with heat regulation, that can over time lead to hypertension and high blood pressure. Now, going into mindset and going from what we talked about before, stress, you work a very stressful job already. And so with high cortisol levels, high stress levels, it's negatively going to impact your sleep. It's negatively going to impact your results in the gym. It's negatively going to impact your performance, both in the gym and on the job. And if you add dehydration to that, well, then you're setting yourself up for failure. Okay. So making sure you're hydrated you're checking one thing off the list. And especially for individuals who work a already high stress job, you're just adding fuel to the fire. Okay. That high blood pressure can lead to really, really, really negative things. Okay. High blood pressure can lead to, I forgot where it went here. Here we go. High blood pressure. And I made a note on this. High blood pressure or dehydration thickens your blood and makes blood vessel walls constrict, which can cause hypertension. High blood pressure strains the heart. Over time, this leads to plaque buildup in the arteries, and blocked arteries can cause a heart attack. And if you look at anybody, if you look at most research studies when it comes to firefighter deaths, one of the main deaths or causes of death is overexertion, stress, medical. And if you kind of look into that further, sudden cardiac death from a 2020 study accounts to 46% of deaths. So the biggest cause of deaths is heart, okay, hypertension, high blood pressure. Okay, and if that's left unchecked through constant dehydration, constant poor sleep, which are very common, very easy within firefighters, that can lead to a heart attack. Okay, you add in other things that are very common for first responders is being overweight, poor nutrition habits. It builds. And so to be your best, to show up your best, and to get the results you want, I mean, hydration can be a big piece of that. Okay. Dehydration also has an increase in glycogen breakdown in the muscles, which contributes to faster fatigue. So if you've ever done a workout and you're like, oh man, my body just doesn't have it today. can, not always, but it can be a sign that you're just dehydrated. You don't have enough water in your system. So you can get, hopefully you're getting the idea that hydration is incredibly important and definitely undervalued. And you're probably looking at yourself like, I might not drink enough water. Most people don't. So some practical things that you can do. Okay. Carry a water bottle with you. Super easy. Like, doesn't matter where you get the water bottle, buy it from anywhere. Carry it with you. Have it closely available. Okay. Have it in your car, in your cruiser, on the truck, at the station. Have a water bottle close to you at all times. Drink water. Try and avoid soda or other things like that. Okay. Whoa. What did I do there? So making sure, I'm just going to shut that down. Other ways that you can, I know lots of people, and especially the women I work with, will often say like, I just don't like water. Fine. Have diffused water. Put some strawberries, melons, apples, whatever. Put stuff in the water, have diffused water, and that can actually provide some micronutrients and electrolytes that are going to help you in other ways. Okay, so diffused water can be something that tastes good, and it can also provide some nutrients that you're maybe not getting through your nutrition. Hopefully you are, but maybe not. So how much water? Very easy equation, and I'm going to say this is a minimum, is whatever your body weight is in pounds, divide that by 2, that's how many ounces of water you should have in a day. Now, things that that's the minimum. I'm going to say that's the minimum. It's hard to drink too much water. You can't really drink too much water. So I always say this is the minimum that you want to hit or strive towards. Okay. So factors to consider: heat, energy output, sleep, all things that are going to affect your water needs. Okay. If you're sweating more, you need to replace that water with more water. Okay. So things like heat, energy output, sleep. If you're underslept, again, you probably need more water because your heart rate, your cortisol levels are a little higher. So your heart rate's going to be a little higher. So you're going to burn more energy. Therefore, you need more water. Okay. So we have sleep, hydration. Those are the first 2 easy big ones on recovery. I can go into more detail on those if you message me or want to inquire, but I think the point's really clear. You need to focus on sleep and you need to focus on hydration. Okay, the next one, nutrition and supplements. This is where I'm going to touch on supplements a little bit. I've already, spoke on the nutrition aspect, so I'm going to probably stay away from that for the most part. But when it comes to nutrition and supplements, if these things are off when it comes to recovery, it's going to be hard to recover without the building blocks of your basic fundamental macronutrients. Okay, so if you're breaking the body down through work or through training, you're going to need to recover. The work is only going to be beneficial if you can recover after that. If I look at, it's like building a house. Okay, if you're trying to renovate a house and all you do is break the house down without rebuilding pieces, if you bust through a wall and leave the wall, well, then the house is going to look like shit. You have to build it back up. So you have to break it down a little bit. That's what happens in your workouts and training. The recovery through nutrition is going to help build it back up. And so it's going to be hard to recover if you don't have proper amounts and quality protein, carbs, and fats. The other aspect to nutrition and supplements, so many people will go for supplements first. I stand by the phrase that like nutrition first, that's going to give you most of the supplements and nutrients that you need. When as you go further down the rabbit hole, you can then dive into supplements. But I would say for most people, supplements, you don't even need them. Don't waste your money. Okay. We'll touch on that in a second. But I always find that many people always tend to go for the pill first, the quick fix, the easy fix, the pill that's going to get me the results I want. And I hate to tell you this, it doesn't exist. And anybody that tries to tell you otherwise is probably trying to sell you their shit. Okay. So don't go for the supplements first. Okay. Go for the nutrition first, supplements second. By definition, supplements are meant to be supplemental to your nutrition. Okay. We have another joining the call. So when it comes to reliance on supplements and other chemical help. Whoops, sorry. I tried to mute you, Tyler. You're good. That's not Tyler. But yes, so if you tend to go for supplements first, reliance on supplements and other chemical help just starts to become the norm. And you end up spending a lot of money and a lot of things on stuff that's probably not going to help you out. Okay, so making sure that you're focusing on proper nutrition first, supplements second. Okay, and then you don't develop that reliance or that dependency. Okay. Next one for nutrition and supplements. When I'm talking about nutrition and supplements, again, we're going to kind of draw the conversation back to hormone levels. You know, it's going to, when your hormone levels are off, that's going to basically result, again, repeating the past, but in poor results, increased risk of injury, stress, etc. You're going to see increases of muscle soreness if your nutrition and supplements, or nutrition and I'll say macro and micronutrient levels, are off, and hormone levels are off. You're just going to feel extra sore. And if you're extra sore, your workouts are going to be less effective. You're going to be less effective at your place of work. And you're also going to say decreased gains. So you're putting all this work in, all this time, energy, money into training, into nutrition, and then your sleep, hydration, and nutrition or supplements is off. Okay, it can throw off all the work that you're doing. So you're kind of doing it all for naught. So you're probably here watching this training because you're wanting to make progress. You're wanting to perform better, to get the results that you're looking for. And you don't want to have decreased gains. Nobody wants decreased gains. So if you want to see increased gains, nutrition and supplements definitely needs to be part of the focus. Okay. So first, watch the nutrition training that I did. If you forget that, you can watch it back. It's on YouTube. It's in the Facebook group. You can do it. But watch the nutrition masterclass I posted. That's going to give you the lowdown on the nutrition. Again, quality plus quantity plus consistency. You get to eat lots of food and you get better gains. Okay, simple as that. But when it comes to supplements, this is a question I get asked a lot. And I like to stay away from supplements. I would rather you get your nutrition on point so that you get the macro and the micronutrients, the vitamins and minerals and supplements essentially from the food sources, because in a naturally occurring food source, your body's going to digest it better and use the pieces of that better, use those building blocks in a better fashion. However, when it comes to first responders, certain supplements are not bad ideas. And so what supplements do I take? This is a big question I get all the time. So first supplement that I always recommend to first responders and anybody working shift work, vitamin D. Okay, it's going to help with blood pressure and it's going to help with mood. When you have proper levels of vitamin D, again, this looks different for everybody as to how much you should take. I would, again, say that you should consult a doctor or a professional when it comes to this, but vitamin D is good to have as a supplement. Chances are you probably don't have enough of your vitamin D. Most people don't. Okay, so that's one supplement you should get. You can get it at any drugstore, anywhere. Second supplement you should take is creatine. Now, should women take creatine? Absolutely. Okay, creatine is going to help with your ATP synthesis in your workouts, which basically is a fancy way of saying it's going to help with muscles and it's going to help with strength. Okay, if you want to build strong muscles, now I'm not saying taking creatine, it's not going to make you a bodybuilder. Okay, most of the bodybuilders, male, female, that you see out there, they usually are either genetically gifted or genetically provided, i.e. steroids. Creatine is naturally occurring. It's found in red meats. And when you take extra creatine, it's just going to help with your muscle growth. You're not going to get big. You're more or less, you're going to get strong. Case in point, I've taken creatine virtually my whole life. Well over half for sure. And, you know, it might be hard to see on a computer screen, but I am not a, bodybuilding individual. I train for function, and yes, I look fit. Yes, I'm whatever, but I'm not too big where I'm not functional anymore, if that makes sense. So creatine is a good one, and it can really help with protein synthesis and just the body's ability to build muscle and strength. Okay, so I definitely recommend that for most first responders and a lot of the women that I work with. ZMA is one that you should take before bed. Okay, so ZMA you can find in most supplement stores. I believe you can find this in most pharmacies as well. But ZMA is going to help with so this is zinc, magnesium. Okay. And it's going to help with your immune system. It's also going to help with fat loss and muscle gain. So it's going to help build the muscle up and just help you recover better. Okay. And it's going to help you get a better sleep as well when it comes to muscle, ZMA is going to make it so that you're not quite as sore, especially if you take ZMA and creatine. You're not going to be as sore as often. Not to say you won't be sore, you still probably will to some degree if you're working out hard and training hard, but these two things can really help your body recover and get better sleeps as well. So you notice it's all kind of interconnected. I'm going to say limit caffeine intake. One thing that's it's not overly common with the women that I work with, but definitely some of the male firefighters that I've worked with in the past. Energy drinks are a big one. I've been guilty of it myself over the years, but when it comes to caffeine, try and stick to coffee and limit that coffee intake. Okay, limit that caffeine intake. That's going to ensure that, again, better sleeps, your stress levels, hormone levels are going to be lower, and you're going to be able to see better results in the gym and better performance on the job and in the gym. Okay. And I'm going to put an asterisk below all of this. At the end of the day, the best when it comes to supplements and nutrients is get your blood work done by a professional. You should be getting this done every 6 months or so. That's going to ensure that you know exactly kind of where you're deficient and where you maybe need to add in some supplements. Case in point, one supplement that can be decent depending on the time and the person is iron. Okay, iron can be a decent supplement to add in. Vitamin C, same thing. But again, chances are you can probably get those nutrients, those micronutrients from food sources. But if you want to be really sure and really dial things in, getting your blood work done by a professional and then knowing where you're deficient can be incredibly helpful and eye-opening as to where you should be maybe focusing on your nutrition and adding in some supplements to add on top of it. But those 3 supplements are the big 3 that I recommend to not all, but most of the women that I work with and the first responders that I work with. Okay. Vitamin D, creatine, and ZMA. Okay. The last point. So we have sleep, hydration, nutrition, and supplements. The last point on recovery, the big 4 that I talk about on recovery, stretching and mobility. Okay. So some of you probably are aware of your central nervous system. This can actually have huge benefits to your central nervous system. But if you're not adding in stretching or mobility into your overall training protocol, you're going to experience constant tightness and probably as a result limits on performance, both in the gym and on the job. Probably going to have some increases in pain, sore joints, sore muscles, sore this, sore that. As a result of all this pain and constant tightness, you're going to have limits to range of motion. So you're not going to be able to do certain things on the job or in the gym. Certain activities, certain tasks that you just physically cannot do because you can't get into that position. Another one of if you're not focusing on stretching and mobility is you're going to see an increase of stress on the muscles, tendons, joints, and even your central nervous system. So I touched on this before. Your CNS, if it's in this constant state of just your body's just being tight and beat up at work, beat up with no stress, beat up with no sleep, it's constantly stressed, you're training hard, and your nutrition, let's say even if your nutrition is great, from being beat up at work, beat up in the gym, and then little sleep or poor sleep, which again, we've recognized might be out of your control to some degree. This can fire the CNS up so that you're in this fight or flight mode. And that can cause crazy negative effects on results that you want to see in the gym, on results that you want to see on a fitness test or on the job. And so this increased stress on muscles, tendons, joints just adds to that. If you're not stretching and working on mobility, it's just adding to the problem of your CNS is being fired up. And so we want to make sure that we help promote that recovery. If we're not working on stretching and mobility, it limits your usable strength. Okay. I've known very strong individuals, but because they don't have the mobility, they can't do certain tasks because they just can't get into those positions. Okay. It limits their range of motion. And like I said, your body stays in this sympathetic state. It stays in this fight or flight mode, and you're just constantly up, operating at the top. It would be like driving your car and putting the pedal to the metal and not letting off. Okay. Eventually it's going to crash. Okay. And, if you're not focusing on recovery, period, if you're not focusing on sleep, if you're not focusing on, putting attention to hydration and nutrition and supplements and stretching and mobility, your body stays in the sympathetic state and eventually it will crash. It's only a matter of time. Okay. So, what I always recommend when it comes to stretching and mobility, or some of the practical advice that I'll give you today, is, again, it's going to promote speed into a parasympathetic mode. Okay. Meaning that rest and digest. Okay. So we put the foot on the gas through training, through work, through all this stuff. Stretching and mobility, I'm going to now ease off the gas a little bit. Okay. I'm going to turn on cruise control, touch the brake a little bit as I turn around the corner. That way I'm not going to crash. Okay. So it's going to improve stretching. Mobility is obviously going to improve your range of motion. You'll be able to get in certain positions on the job. When I look at firefighters, you're often firefighters and paramedics predominantly, but even police officers too. And depending on where in the military you're working, this can apply to you as well. But it's going to improve your range of motion. So you're going to be able to get in certain positions. Nothing is like, you're not picking up barbells all day at work. I mean, maybe you are to some degree, but more often than not, like, you're in a situation that requires you to be in a weird position, lifting a heavy weight or another person or something. And so having good ranges of motion is going to be incredibly important in order to get into those positions safely, and then have strength in those positions so that you can properly build up and complete whatever task it is you want to complete. It's going to improve your performance. Okay. When I look at the individual, what they're performing for is how I'll work with them in designing their program. But, looking at the day-to-day job task requirements of first responder, many women come to me looking to help to pass their fitness test. And so one of the things we're going to work on is, range of motion, depending on where they're at. And so, it is going to improve their performance overall on those fitness tests if we can make sure that they have strength in certain ranges of motion, depending on them as an individual. So there's three rules that I give to everybody when it comes to stretching and mobility. Work on active range of motion before your workout. So what I mean by this is, before workout, as part of your warm-up, you want to ensure that you add in some active range of motion work, meaning you're, holding the bottom of a squat in an isometric squat, and getting, maybe getting as low as you possibly can go and just holding that. It could mean stretching out. There's tons of things. It could mean stretching out your shoulders. And again, through an isometric contraction, we touched on this in the training, working through strength in those end ranges of motion. So if you're, have a dumbbell in your hand and you raise it up as high as you can and just kind of hold it there, in that end range of motion where you're not compensating through other movement, that's going to help build up some strength and stability in the shoulder joint. So there's lots of different things. Obviously, with the programs I design and the people I work with, part of like their warm-up is just that. It's like their warm-up, we're working on active range of motion before the workout, which is going to prep them for what they're going to do in their workout. But if you're not warming up with an active range, you're probably not going to see any benefit in that end range or strength in that end range. And that's going to result in injury either in the gym or on the job. Okay. Second rule that I give to people I work with and what I would recommend to you is work on passive post-workout. So what I mean by this is more your stretching mobility stuff. Okay. So I'll give you a code here in a bit, but stretching mobility can be passive. So there's differences between passive and active ranges of motion. The best way I can describe it is if you ever put a heavy barbell on a yoga instructor, they're going to fold like a cheap tent in most cases, not always. But so, just because you're flexible doesn't mean you're usable in those end ranges of motion. So you want to build up some strength. So that's why I say active range of motion before the workout, passive range after. And that's going to ensure that your mobility improves over time and that you actually move in a usable way, because it's one thing to be flexible. It's another thing to be able to do these things day to day, whether it's in a fitness test or in the gym or on the job. Do it daily. Okay. The more you do it, the more consistent, again, going to those 4 C's, the more consistent you are with it, the better off you're going to be. the better you're going to perform. Okay. So I'll give you the we'll say recovery guide, which is really just a link so I follow for myself personally, the clients I work with, I usually recommend, there's lots of different ones out there. You might have heard of like ROMWOD or GOWOD. I recommend the Ready State because they give you a lot more tools with that active range of motion and passive range of motion. And so that's why I like them. And I find their mobility protocols align with what I would say performance-based athletes need. Okay. And when I look at first responders, you're a performance-based athlete. Okay. You need to be physically fit for the job. Okay. So if you go to the following link, you're going to get basically ability to sign up for a 14-day free trial. And then I think it's like $15 a month after that. Definitely worth it in my opinion. But if you go to the link, download the trial, you can cancel it before the trial if you really hate it. But again, do it daily and just see how you feel, see how the body feels. Your joints will probably hurt less. Your body will probably feel better. And especially if you're combining sleep, nutrition, and your hydration into that, overall, your recovery, you're just going to feel way better, which is going to allow you to attack your workouts with a little bit more fury. It's going to allow you to hit your fitness tests with a little bit more readiness, and it's going to keep you more alert and ready and prepared for when you have to hit the ground running on shift or on the job. Okay. So that's that. You can write this link down. Again, I'll send it later tonight, but that's that when it comes to recovery. Just the very overview. There's based on the individual, there's lots of nuance to it. But if you have any questions, you can link up with me on any of these channels here. I'm more than happy to answer any questions you might have. But ultimately, it's all in the benefit of, if you're training hard, and, if you care about performing better, if you care about getting the results you want to get, then, recovery, and specifically those 4 areas or 4 key areas, definitely needs to be a focus if it hasn't been yet. And so, yeah, that's that when it comes to recovery. But if you have more questions on it, feel free to reach out to me anytime and we can go from there. I'll leave it open for a second. If there's any questions on the group chat, I'm not seeing anything just yet. No questions. Thanks, Jessica. Yeah, hopefully you guys learned a lot. So I will leave it at that. Any questions that come to you after the fact, feel free to reach out. And otherwise, tomorrow we're going to go through the I don't know how to say this, but like the hidden secret to ensuring that you never regress. Okay. So tomorrow's going to be our last training. I'm going to go over a couple things and give you that some strategy on how to ensure that you see success kind of long run. So that's it for me. Other than that, have a great day and we will see you tomorrow. All right.